Hello, folks. Hello, everybody. Welcome to my podcast, Cuppa Terrific. Welcome back, guys. And welcome to my YouTube channel. This is a first for me, so here we are. Hi. This is the podcast that braves the wilds of the dreamscape, and I'm your host, Cherie, and I take you through the dreamscape and some dreams and interpretations in hopes to bring home some pearls of wisdom. Today I have a hodgepodge of different dreams that I looked at on Reddit, and I'm going to bring up my podcast from last week and how that's going to transition into something for this week. And I hope that you guys really enjoy it, what I put together for you today. First of all, what am I drinking? I'm drinking some yummy iced tea out of my very, very cute Indiana Jones cup. For those of you who have been listening to me on my podcast and have been following me on social media, you will know that Indiana Jones is the best. He's my favorite American hero, and sipping on something delicious while I'm working is one way to put me in a positive mood. So here we go. Here is today's episode. So last week, if you guys didn't get a chance to listen, please go back to listen to that episode. It's a longer one. It's about an hour long. I did an interview with Dr. Stoller, who is a psychologist who is up in Canada. He has some really great experience working with many different kinds of people, and he has a background in psychedelics, and he has a background in past life regression and dream analysis and hypnosis, and he's a mountaineer to top it all off. So he is also a physicist, you name it. This guy's pretty brilliant. He's got his own website. It's called Mind Strength Balance, I believe. Let's see. Let me make sure that I've got his website correct. Yeah, mindstrengthbalance.com. You can find all kinds of stuff. Some of it you can just click on and access, and some of it you can get in touch with him for more one-on-one sort of meetings. But anyway, so one of the things that we discussed a lot last week, sorry, hold on a minute. Obviously, my family is out riding the motorcycles right now. You'll see me squinting because I took my glasses off. I don't have contacts yet, but it reflects really bad in here, so I want you to be able to see my eyes. Even though I look like I'm in a lot of pain. It's just hard to see. Yeah, so moving on, last week I had a discussion with Dr. Stoller, specifically focusing on dreams that are repetitive or traumatic in nature, are usually nightmares, and how we can possibly use our dreams and our nightmares to help us. And one of the things we talked about was how folks that are like me, that have some significant trauma, definitely have dreams that are centered around that trauma. And I wanted to kind of delve into that a little bit more and look at people who have dreams, like specific dreams that have to do with trauma or nightmares. Just today, I looked at a couple. Let's see. I mostly followed the Reddit forum Dream, and the example that I'm going to use first, it's called Numb Hands and Nightmares. The poster says, I sometimes experience nightmares. I do have PTSD and some unresolved trauma that I'm working on getting help for. I've noticed when I have regular dreams, this doesn't happen. Only when I have nightmares, I wake up and I can't feel my hands. It almost feels like they're balloons, like they're blown, filled up with air, like they're blown up, filled with air. Can't find any information on this online as usual. Can anybody tell me if this makes any sense? So my response to the original poster was that, I also have PTSD and I have some significant trauma that I have to work through. And like most people, I also have nightmares. Some of my nightmares has to do with trauma that I've been through and PTSD type stuff. But I will say that I've not had those kinds of dreams or nightmares in conjunction with that experience. I have had that sort of pins and needles feeling in my hands and in my feet because I get swelling sometimes. So I just cautioned them that even though they're working through things, which is good, everybody just PSA, take care of your mental health, get help for what you're going through because we're all going through stuff. We always need someone in our corner that can kind of give us another view on things. But they're working through what they're going through. And they're trying to look up online what is going to help them understand why are they having these nightmares, and then they wake up with their hands all swollen. Well, I think the opposite could very well be true. I think that on nights that their hands are swollen, it very well could be that they've got some kind of underlying medical condition that they need to look into and possibly be diagnosed with to get some care, because this whole experience that we have as human beings, it's your mind, it's your spirit, it's your body, and they all kind of work together, and sometimes they work together in ways that are not completely understood. And our body, we still feel our body a lot whenever we're sleeping, and that information gets twisted and interpreted in strange ways in our dreams, and it can drive nightmares if you're not able to wake up. Sometimes your dreams can get so scary that it literally makes you wake up so that you can become awake, like real life awake, so that you can deal with an issue. I think that's the case possibly with this person, that the reason why they're not finding stuff online about many people having this, it likely could be some kind of underlying medical condition that they need to look into. Not to undermine any kind of trauma that they're going through and that they're dealing with, because that is very real and it's very personal, and it's something that we all need to work through when we have different kinds of experiences. Another one that I read, same forum, comes from a new poster who says that trauma dreams have become worse, but the content is better. That's the title. It's kind of a long post, but ultimately what they're getting at is they had a really small family, and so once they didn't have any more family, they wound up becoming very close with a couple of friends. And then those couple of friends started having a lot of fights and arguments, and at one point, the original poster, the OP, realized that those people had moved out of their life, kind of just out of nowhere, and that created a lot of trauma for them, centered around that. So I imagine they probably have feelings of rejection and that sort of thing that they have to work through already, just based off of their family and not feeling like they belong, and then having this kind of experience with people that they got close to and had as roommates. But the dreams that this person started having were kind of seeing the very same things going on in their dream, almost like they could it could be real, like it was still going on, or maybe imagining that it wasn't that bad to live together, that they ultimately want everybody to be together again. And you know, I think of this dream as they're trying to come to terms with maybe some of the things that they did wrong, or that they didn't understand what they did wrong, and that they're trying to get back to what they had because they didn't have that in other ways in their life. Um, and I mean, we learn so much from our family and our friends that we make about how to engage and interact with others, that those relationships really become super valuable and important to us, whether we want to say that out loud or not. It is true. It helps us in all future interactions and relationships with others, so that we can say what we mean and mean what we say, and make the most out of our experiences and relationships. Um, so I kind of tunneled off into something else, but I feel like this person misses what they had with them and is trying to find a way to get back to that, whether it's actually with these people or with anyone else. Um, but yeah, that's an example of like trauma continuing to come up in a dream and being a continual element of your dream. Another example of trauma that's kind of similar to what I'm talking about right now, we talked about in the last episode a little bit. Dr. Schuller was talking about a patient that he had who served during the Korean War, and they didn't have any antibiotics, but the patient realized that their patient was a young girl, was dying, and he wasn't able to keep her from dying because he didn't have the right medical equipment. And he was really tortured by that for many years after the fact, but later dreamed about the girl that passed away, this teenager. And she, walked with him through this dream, and by the end of it, explained to him that she was fine and that he didn't need to worry about her anymore. So, whether you want to believe or not believe, because you're going to have to take this one on faith, that this person's spirit came to them, or whether this was just a construct of the person's mind, whether it was an exterior spirit or something inside of this person, the dream provided him with something that was very meaningful. The end result is he found comfort in something that was really torturing him. Um, in our waking lives, when we have trauma, we kind of suffer from things. Some ways it's obvious to us what the trauma actions and decisions are. In some ways it's not obvious to us, and that's where it's really important to get therapy and to help you work through what you're working through, whatever the issue is, because mental health is health. If you fall and you scrape your arm, there's something wrong. There's something that you need to work on to help you. It's not to say that you're broken. It's to say that you have an open wound in your mind that can grow infected. You can start having these dreams that you start to second guess yourself and questioning and really tripping over the lesson of what's there. And sometimes, you know what? There isn't a lesson. As much as we want to believe that everything happens for a reason, sometimes there just isn't a lesson. And we don't want to think that things just happen for no reason at all. But I digress. Ultimately, trauma dreams can be therapeutic. The dream about the spirit coming to the guy, that's an example of our trauma dreams being very helpful for us and can be very healing. What we need to caution ourselves from is when our dreams become so disturbing that we're having these nightmares, and then we're judging ourselves for those nightmares and our opinions and decisions that are kind of spiraling out of control a little bit into this negative self-talk and stuff. We should be using those experiences to help heal those wounds and what's difficult for us, and show ourselves that compassion and learn from our experiences and what we can in our waking life, so that we can stop having dreams that are causing us so much pain and grief. It kind of also goes in line with the idea of like always be grateful for everything, because there's good that can come of it. You can have like the worst day ever and it's terrible, but it is one moment of your life. Other good things are going to come, and just being thankful that you're alive is sometimes all you can do for gratefulness. But it allows you to stay open to, more good coming into your life later. And if everything were good all the time, we wouldn't really be able to appreciate it, because this would be our new normal. So just be grateful that we have our lows so that we can experience our highs as well, and be grateful for it throughout all of it. That doesn't mean you have to be happy with it all the time. You don't have to smile all the time. That's not the point that I'm trying to make here. But yeah. So the last dream I wanted to bring up, which was kind of unique, was something I was connecting to today when I was reading through some of these trauma dreams. I don't really think that this dream is a trauma dream, but because I connected to it, I thought it was kind of special, and it's kind of short, so I wanted to end on a short and sweet note. Still in the same Reddit forum called Dream. This particular post is called Dream of a Haunted Room in a Flat. The original poster says, I have this recurring dream of a flat I already live in or that I move into, and there's one room that I don't enter because it's haunted. That happens in every dream. Do some of y'all experience something like that? Well, I can tell you that I haven't really experienced it in every dream like the poster said, but what started to intrigue me is that I have always thought of the metaphor of your mind is represented, can be easily represented as a house in a dream. So whenever I've thought about a house or houses, I think about it in such a way as how it relates to how you perceive your mind to work, right? So I thought, well, if that were true, then there's a section of this person's mind that is haunted that they don't go into. So it's like, okay, I need to look this up. I want to know what this means. And they're not having any luck either trying to figure it out. So I was like, you know what? I got you. I want to look this one up. So the book that I decided I was going to check out is this one. It's called Dream Dictionary. It's by Eric Ackroyd. And the first thing that I tried to look up was haunting, which isn't in this book. But then I looked up, what's it called? I looked up ghost. And under ghost, it says, see also spirits, which I'll bring up later. But what it says under ghost is, for Freud, a ghost was a symbol of the mother. So the poster didn't say anything about it possibly being their mother. And they also don't say that they see a ghost. They just say that the room is haunted. But saying something is haunted can have a lot of meanings and interpretations. An object in the room can be haunted by a spirit or by an entire group of people, or there could be some kind of poltergeist, or haunting can mean a lot of different things. So ghost really doesn't completely fit. So if they're thinking of someone in particular haunting the room, that might be what they're after. But ghosts led me to spirits in this book. And oftentimes whenever I'm looking for an interpretation that scratches that itch in my mind of intuition, like, there's something here and I know that there's something here. It takes me on this roller coaster of like ups and downs and this sidewinding situation of trying to figure out what could this possibly mean. Some things I have to kind of set aside as no, that doesn't quite fit with the narrative of what I saw or what I'm interpreting the other person saw. Um, so spirits didn't originally come to my mind, but I'm going to check it out because it's in the book that I picked up. And let's see, which this is the part that I really connected to and wanted to share with you guys today. Spirits. I need more tea. Everybody stay hydrated. Take a drink. Okay, so spirits. You see, I'm like on the page that I'm looking at. There's a nice creepy skull. All right, it says spirits may be benign or threatening. Probably could have gone without reading that, but yeah, okay. And then it says for a first interpretation, they may represent not yet discovered or utilized powers or capacities of your psyche, offering inspiration, creativity, love, and powers of healing. So that could be it, or it could be that this person is not aware that maybe that's what's in there, but they're aware that there is something there. It doesn't directly say that they're afraid to go into that room, so I don't think it's necessarily like they're afraid of that part of themselves. But if there is like a horror element to it or ejection element of it, the second meaning kind of fits. It says, spirits may represent psychic forces that have escaped from your conscious control. Jung called them complexes. And these will almost always certainly damage your personal efficacy and destroy your happiness if you continue to repress and neglect them. If, however, you pay attention to them and give them an appropriate creative role in your life, your personality will blossom. So I feel like I really related to this passage in that I feel like I have trapped off a lot of my intuitive self, and because it's so woo-woo and out there, and folks aren't going to understand it, and there's no logical explanation for some of the stuff that I experience, but it's interesting and it calls me. So I feel like if there's something that's really calling you, if you don't answer it, it's just going to keep calling you. So you might as well follow it through. And that kind of sounded a little bit more Frozen 2-ish than I really meant it for that interpretation to go. But perhaps that original poster is experiencing some kind of psychic ability or creative abilities that they are preventing themselves from really taking into themselves and accepting as a part of themselves. And if it's something that's really meant to be, it's going to find a way to come out of your throat. It's going to find a way to, you know, to torture you to the point where it's going to make you interested enough to walk through that haunted door to see what's on the other side. Maybe it's human nature. I'm not sure. But anything that is really exciting and fun out of life, there's some element of fear and scariness to it that you're like, oh, I don't want to do this. But sometimes that's the best, you know, like when you ride a roller coaster, it's really scary and terrifying and you don't want to do it, but odds are you're going to be safe and you're going to be fine. But yeah, same thing with any kind of creativity. You've got to allow yourself the space to be creative, you know, and that's one of the wonderful things about increasing your experiences when you dream and trying to write down your dreams, because the more you do that, it's like a discipline, it's like an exercise for your mind. You start to develop that creative connection where you can remember your dreams, and your dreams start to take on more and more meaning. And the more that you do it, the more that pathway is walked, and in that section of your mind, it's strong, so that you can remember different elements of things that you dreamt about the night before, right? Um, Sometimes my dreams are so vivid that I have to wake up at 3 o'clock in the morning and go and write down, even if I'm just scribbling things, because I know I may miss some of those tiny details that might make all the difference in my interpretation later. Um, but some dreams are very short, similar to these ones, where I can remember them in the morning, and I know that I can go and look into them to scratch that itch, to find that pearl of wisdom, as it were. Speaking of which, I have all these lovely books, like I had mentioned before. I pulled out Dream Dictionary just a second ago, and I have my altar here where I've got my incense and my crystals and that sort of thing. And if you're just tuning in on the podcast today, I am having my first, YouTube live session here. So you may not be able to see it, but you can come check me out on my YouTube channel, Cuppa Terrific. It's the same thing as my podcast channel, and you can actually see my creative space and see what that looks like. Um, but yeah, one of the kind of cool things that I wanted to draw you guys' attention to is this box here. This box was got for me by my husband and a really close friend. He bought it for me based off of their judgment that this was most like me. This card was most like me. It drew them to the box. Um, they got this for me from Salem, and so it has this special witchy vibe to it that I absolutely adore. This card is the High Priestess card, and she represents all things of intuition, right? And I didn't really have a card pulled out today, so it makes sense that showing everybody the first time my creative space, and this is the card that was picked for me by my family and friends, that I would talk about this card because I haven't talked about it yet. So here's the High Priestess. If you want to look at her, here's a great view. So it's this beautiful woman sitting on a stone throne between two pillars. I don't know how much you guys know about the stonemasons, but these two pillars come from the, not stonemasons, excuse me, Freemasons. This comes from that religious society, and they represent, I forget what the J is, but B I think is Boaz. Anyways, they're two pillars that are like the masculine and feminine energy that is positive and negative, a lot of like the flip opposite of each other kind of ideas. They hold up the temple, right? In between is the passageway between the realm of logic, and on the other side is the realm of dreams and heaven. A heavenly state, if you will, a state of nirvana. And this woman sits on this throne, and she's crowned with this beautiful crown that represents the moon, which is a symbol of intuition, and you can tell she's some kind of feminine leader. And she's cloaked in this beautiful blue cloak. Blue is considered a color of intuition, things that you just happen to know. And if you look at like where she's seated, you can see that there's a moon here. The moon represents feminine power and energy and change. The bottom of her cloak kind of looks like a waterfall right here. And water it often represents emotions, right? And how emotions can help guide us in our intuition and our intuitive thoughts. And it also spills out into what starts to turn green, which is life-giving, and it represents creativity. So, in you looking at all these different elements, it makes sense why my family and friends would have picked this out for me before I even really realized it. Because at first I was like, why did you guys pick this card for me? Like, what is this all about? I've always been drawn to tarot as a young person, and so they brought me this deck, and ever since I've used it to help me write creatively and think about different archetypes and what they could possibly mean. And it has really helped me deal with a lot of issues in my life in an exterior way, so that it's not just, trapped in my head and I'm just experiencing this all by myself. I'm able to write it down on paper, look at these pictures, and start to make some sense of what's going on in my life. Um, and sometimes it's things that I couldn't get to before because it wasn't triggering that part of my mind. So she helps. She kind of represents that help that guides me through those interpretations, and also helps me in my podcast. Um, but yeah, and that's kind of my, I guess, overall pearl of wisdom for you guys today. Um, I guess, is that none of us as humans really have original thoughts, because pretty much everything you could think or say or do has been done by someone before you. But we do have thoughts that are original to us, that maybe have been thought before, and there are more that folks have thought that we as individuals have not thought yet. So there's a lot of joy in finding others that are learning things at the same time, or are passing off little treasures like that to each other. And I open myself up to that, learning from others and connecting to them on what their experiences are. And this last dreamer I mentioned, talking about that haunted room in their flat, could be that, intuition in their mind that they're trying to connect to. And I don't know where they are, somewhere in the world, but you helped give me a sense of connection, and I really appreciate that. And I want people to continue to reach out and share things like that. So I'm going to reach out and share what I find with you guys. If you guys had a different interpretation of anything that I mentioned today, please feel free to check me out on my website, or directly send me an email at my email address, which is cuppaterrific@gmail.com. I also have my website at cuppaterrific.com. And if you guys are just tuning in, I also have a podcast, so feel free to check me out on Google Podcasts and on Apple Podcasts. Spotify is a big one. Please feel free to take a little bit of time and leave me a rating and give me some feedback, so that you can help me grow this community and grow as a creator. But yeah, thanks for letting me get in front of you guys again today, and I hope that you really enjoyed this first live episode with me. And with that, I guess, may all your cups overflow.